Welcome to Spam Filter for Your Brain, bite-sized ponderings on how our thoughts influence our behaviour and our lives, and because we're all connected, how our thoughts impact the world. I'm here to help people reconnect with their bodies and declutter their brains. And I don't believe that we should just magically know how our emotions and our thoughts impact our lives if no one ever teaches us. So let's learn this stuff together. There is a wild trick that our brain plays on us, and that is to convince us that when we loop in old thought patterns and we tell ourselves the same old story day in, day out, even when we know better, that it's some personal fault. I coach so many people who think that their inability to match up what they know, what they politically believe, what they ethically and morally believe with the way that they talk to themselves is some personal flaw that they haven't quite got their head around yet. And so rather than just looking at how to bridge this gap and make these things closer and how we could break some of these cycles and loops, what people do is they shame themselves about it. They criticize themselves about it, brings on a whole load of shame. And I think that's a bit like pouring cement on top of your feelings. This week, we're looking at why we have thought loops and why we can't break our own patterns. Most of us have these idea of thought loops, things that just keep coming up, these old stories, the conclusions that we have drawn from things that frankly are correlational rather than causation, or things that we have absorbed from society around us. They might be about our body image, they might be about our productivity, they might be about our relationships with other people, and they quite often revolve around our value in regards to how we are seen within a hierarchy of the world for which we are living through. And we have these thoughts that repeat in our own brains, criticizing ourselves, criticizing the way that we're responding to things, telling ourselves that we're not getting things right and we're not doing things well enough. And we've told ourselves these things so often that quite often we think that they're our story. And these loops go on and on. And no matter how far you go down the road, how much you learn, how much you try and untangle this stuff, sometimes these thoughts just keep popping up. And I'm here to let you know that the reason why they pop up is because it's a very well-worn groove in your brain. Your brain loves to find a quick solution for things, and this comes back to like old programming and old survival mechanisms when we didn't know when our next energy source would be coming from. We didn't know where we were going to find food. We didn't know how we were going to survive. So your brain's designed to try and conserve as much energy as possible, and if it can find a little shortcut, it's going to find that shortcut. And so these old stories are like your brain going, I know what's happening there. We've done this before. Here we are. Obviously, you're a problem. That's what happens for quite a lot of us. And even though we can try and slam on a handbrake when we've got these thought loops going, because we happen to have read a new book or seen a really good meme that explains all of our brain problems for us, or someone says something in a conversation that really feels like a penny drop moment, when we go back to those old patterns, we can then start criticizing ourselves and telling ourselves that we should know better. We're obviously not learning anything, and so we're not making any progress. The reality is that each time we try and think of things in another way, each time we are anything other than vicious to ourselves, each time we try and create a new pathway to a different response to some of these stimulus that come up for us in our everyday environments that we have been used to criticizing ourselves about, every time we have a different response, it makes it slightly more likely that in future you can also have a different response. Every time you are more kind to yourself, it makes it more likely that you can be more kind to yourself in the future. Your brain is developing some sense of familiarity that you not being really horrible could also be an option. And so, even though it may feel like some of these stories repeat and come up, even though you should know better, the reality is that every time you can force and interrupt, you're starting to write a different pattern. You're starting to create a different response. And each time you do that is really valuable. And it can be really hard because sometimes it does feel like we're going in reverse. Sometimes it feels like we're not making any progress at all. And this is just a normal human response because we want to get away from the horrible feelings of discomfort that we're experiencing. But also, this is a real sneaky way that your brain has of going, oh, it's not worth it. Let's go back to the easy thing again. Because that again conserves energy. It's very logical, the stuff that's going on here. And I want to plant this seed this week that this is not some kind of personal failing. And you could do yourself a favor by reminding yourself of that. This is your brain simply trying to keep you safe. It's simply trying to keep you alive. And it thinks that the way to do that is to do things in the quickest, fastest route possible. Just so happens that that quickest, fastest route possible for many of us involves quite a lot of self-criticism. And it doesn't have to be that. The more you access ways that speak to yourself with more kindness, more compassion, more generosity, the more you are able to build self-trust as your default. You don't have to brute force your way into compassion. Not something I'd recommend. But giving yourself gentle praise for every time you're not feeling completely awful about yourself, or you speak to yourself with some level of gentle praise, really does emphasize the dopamine reward to your brain that this stuff's worth it. Because it's not always easy, we know that. Maybe sometimes making progress, being more kind to yourself, working towards speaking to yourself with the kind of love and kindness that you would wish for those around you. Maybe sometimes that does look like circling, but maybe that's okay. Working out ways that you don't have to criticize yourself for the way that you're behaving is the way to try and make more kindness more accessible to you more of the time, which is something that I would really recommend. If you want to learn how to stop being quite so much of an asshole to yourself the whole time, it's what I'm exceptional at showing people the route map to. Over at Self Care School, we have really useful courses that teach you how to untangle this stuff in your own brain that you can use in everyday circumstances. There are resources in the show notes, and there's also a link to be able to book a free 15-minute coaching call with me. If you have something you just want a little bit of an extra angle on that you can't quite see your way through, hop on a free call with me and we'll try and map our way there. I promise that it is possible for you to break some of these old stories. All you need to do is just begin one step at a time. If you'd like to make that journey a little bit faster, do pop over to selfcareschool.co.uk and I look forward to speaking to you next week. If you've been enjoying what you're hearing on the podcast, you will love Self Care School. Self Care School is longer versions of this, more in depth and more personalised. We have a whole hub of courses from body image to boundaries, perfectionism, time management, and a whole range of other topics. You name it, there's probably a course on it. But most importantly, we also have a weekly group coaching call where you get to apply this stuff to your everyday life and get support to try and untangle your own story from some of the emotions that you might not be enjoying in your life. If you would like to learn how to apply this work to your specific situation and to be building a life of your dreams, I would love to see you inside. Do pop over to selfcareschool.co.uk.